The Tailor at the Witch's Sabbath. The tailor from Förkärla Blekinge, which I shall now tell you about, was one of those traveling workers, they say, who walked around between different parishes and lived at the farms for about a week or two while preparing what the people needed in terms of sewing and clothing. This happened at the beginning of the week of Easter. The tailor came to a large house where the master had died many years earlier, and the lady living there was therefore a widow. The woman did not have the best reputation in the area. It was rumored that she would be in league with none other than the devil himself. Yes, someone even claimed to have seen how the lady once, when she needed cream for her coffee, milked it straight from the handle of a wooden spoon. It was then, of course, milk that was stolen from a neighbor's cow that came from it. Not to mention that time when a beggar, who had walked into her cabin without knocking, had witnessed how her broom swept the kitchen floor for her, while the lady herself quietly sat and ate dinner. These rumors had reached the tailor's ears, and therefore he decided to come to the farm of the old woman the week just before Easter, as that was the time of the year when all the witches held their big gathering at Blakula. He meant to find out what she was up to this weekend, and if it turned out that she chose to stay home from the devil's party, it would leave a very bad mark on her record, and the tailor felt it served the bedlam right. Then, as the eve of Easter fell, and the tailor had finished his supper, the old lady prepared his bed, and it was pretty obvious that she hoped that he would soon go to sleep.
"No thanks,"
the tailor replied.
"I feel I can probably not sleep for quite a while, 'cause I had hoped to finish with my sewing tonight."
It was easily noticed that the old lady was not very happy with his answer, and the closer it got to midnight, the more bitter and forceful she became. When the clock struck 11, the man decided he'd obey her request and go to bed.
"How do I know when you're asleep?"
The old lady wondered with a hint of curiosity.
"Well,"
he answered.
"you can hear it as I squeal a lot whenever I sleep."
The tailor laid there for a while and kept himself awake for some time, but when it was only a few minutes left until midnight, he closed his eyes and began to whistle and peep through his nose and give off all kinds of other strange sounds. Then the old woman went up to him and examined him carefully. Once she felt convinced that he was truly asleep, she took her clothes off. Then she silently opened a big old chest in which she kept a cow horn, and in that cow horn she kept her witch's ointment. Then she fetched her broom from the corner of the fireplace and added the ointment around the shaft, then stood astride the front of the open hearth, where the fire had now died down, and then she hissed out the following words.
"Up and out, and over mountain and valley, down at the plains where the devils rally, and home again before the sun reclaims his reign."
No sooner had she spoken that chant until the broom flew off with her into the chimney. She left with such speed that the tailor could hardly see as she disappeared through the opening, for he, the little sneak, had of course only pretended to sleep, in order to lure the woman so she'd travel to the devil. But not only that, he also thought he could do the same thing as the old woman did in order to follow her, then see where she had gone and what she was doing. He quickly got up, picked up a baking spade that he brushed with the lotion that remained in the horn. Then, in turn, he stood in front of the fireplace and aimed the spade shaft as he was trying to remember what the old witch had said. But as he was in a hurry, and his memory was not the best, he ended up stumbling upon the verse, and it came out like this as he shouted,
"Up and down, before the sun claims its reign."
The annoying thing with magic spells is that it'll turn out exactly as you say, and thus the poor bastard flew up and down through the chimney, all until the break of dawn when the chimney was thoroughly sooted. Once the baking spade finally stopped, there was not much life left in him, and tired out as he was instantly fell asleep, and therefore he never got to see the witch return from her journey to Satan, and the tailor had lost his desire to visit Blakula for that time. But when he met the witch the next morning, he swore by his iron that next year he'd be damned if he didn't catch the old hag. So the next Easter, he came to the exact same village and visited the same old lady. It all transpired like last time, but with the slight difference that this time he made sure to remember the chant.
"Up and out, and over mountain and valley, down at the plain where the devils rally, and home again before the sun reclaims his reign."
And mark my word, dear listeners, this time the tailor flew away with such speed that he nearly lost grip of the broom and lost his breath completely. When he finally reached Blakula, it was filled with witches, warlocks, and devils, all shuffling to get a seat at the grand table, and at the center of that table sat none other than Satan himself. When he saw the tailor, he gave off a disgusted grin and said,
"Tailors, They certainly are a defiant bunch.
But now that the tailor was there, it was not much to do about it, so he was welcome to sit at Satan's table with all of his witches. But before they began to eat, the tailor read his prayer out of old habit, and saw what they were all being served was not at all the meat and steaks he saw when coming there. It was toads, spiders, and snakes, and all kinds of strange food that no Christian man would dare devour. Thus he decided to go hungry for this time. Once the meal was finally over, the devil decided it was time to bring about some entertainment.
Let's indulge ourselves in some combat,
he shouted, and a bunch of imps came about and started to deliver swords to each and every one of the guests. That's when the tailor got to gaze upon a strange sight. All of the naked witches began to stab and beat each other with the swords, like there was no tomorrow.
Broken today, whole tomorrow!
They all shouted each time they struck an opponent.
Broken today, whole tomorrow!
Soon the blood was flying all over from the wounds they put on each other, and it was not little that they struck with. Yes, they tore off both noses, ears, and tits from each other. The tailor watched with curiosity this strange act, when he suddenly noticed a little boy standing beside him, probably a poor child that one of the witches had brought along on her journey.
You know what?
The boy said.
If you shouted it the other way around, I wonder if maybe there'd be no wounds on them today. But perhaps it'll be another story tomorrow.
The tailor pondered for a second on the boy's words, then grabbed a sword and decided to join in the game. He beat, stabbed, and chopped for all he could muster, and each time he hit a witch, he shouted eagerly,
Whole today, broken tomorrow! Whole today, broken tomorrow!
He kept that going for as long as he could, but no matter how much he beat them with it, or how deep he cut them, it didn't seem to have any effect at all. When they finally decided they had grown tired of the game, the devil commanded them all to come and write their names in his great book. The tailor was worried at first, because he was not sure how he could stop it, but then he came up with an idea. Once he got there, he wrote down the name of Jesus Christ. Once the devil saw this, he could not as much as touch it. He just kicked the table over so the book landed on the ground in front of the tailor, as he said,
Take it. None of us can carry it anymore after what you did.
The tailor picked up the book and rode away on his broom. The witch remained there celebrating with the devil and his underlings for the rest of the night. But once she came back early next morning, she were beaten and battered by the tailor's sword. Her nose was cut off and her ear too. The same had happened to a couple of other people in the village that too had been at the feast. Now, the tailor had the evidence against him that he needed, and he quickly had them all put to death by informing the authorities. And since that day, no witches were ever again discovered in Förkärla. But it might be for an entirely different reason, because after receiving the great book by Satan, the tailor suddenly joined the Freemasons and became a very powerful man. So it's questionable if he used the book for good or bad, and the outcome of this tale might not have been a happy one at all.
Macamete lines, witch, and also the tailor, ba-ba-ba! Whoa! Black Sabbath! Fuck my life.
Up and out, and over mountain and valley, down at the plains where the devils rally, and home again before the sun reclaims his reign!
This is a Lucky Charms commercial, isn't it? I sound stupid. But I do like the rhyme.
With the snap of my finger and the flick of my dick, one zap from me will kill you quick. So get on your knees and suck and blow, but don't do it now, I have to go!